And once the activity began, each person took their turn eating the goldfish. Jim Bro took it like a shot and was done with it. The high schooler who was trying to impress his girlfriend struggled but got it down. Now, our girl, however, had a different plan. She thought if she could stop the goldfish from moving in her mouth, she could get it down. So this girl decided to chew the live goldfish.
No!
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Youth Group Chronicles. We're doing something a little different today. You're probably used to having one person co-host the show with me, but we have two people.
There's two of us.
These are two of my good friends,
Yes.
Pastor Aaron and Mindy Spencer. Welcome to the show, guys.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm excited to be here. These are the best things ever.
I die every time I hear these stories because I'm like,
I think
dear
just
God.
because they're in a sense relatable.
Right, 'cause I'm like, I've actually seen that happen before. And it's,
Yeah.
Well, here's the fun thing. You get to hear them before anybody else. Now, before we dive into the podcast, if you're listening to this and you have stories that you would like to submit, you can email them to ygchronicles@gmail.com. Yeah, people are emailing in probably daily at this point.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I have pages and pages of stories. So if you've emailed in, I apologize if it hasn't gotten on the show yet. It's we have a lot to get through. But
It'll make its way.
yeah, one of these days it'll get.
it'll peep the light of day. It's fine.
For example, I think you emailed me like a story months ago.
Yeah, I think I gave you a couple of them.
A couple of them. Yeah, they will make it on the show at some point. It's in the queue. All right. So to start things off, these are email submissions today. This is how many we have. We're just going to be sitting on email submissions all day. Braden said, "This is by far my biggest fail in youth ministry so far. It was the day that I got introduced as the high school pastor, and I got to teach on a Wednesday night. And at the end of the service, they informed the high schoolers that I would be leading the ministry. Now, before I got introduced, I taught over Acts 2. While giving the background on what Pentecost was, I accidentally said that the disciples were at the big Jewish holiday called the Holocaust." Oh, my God.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
He said, yes, I seriously said a big Jewish holiday and followed it with the Holocaust.
A big Jewish holiday.
That is so offensive on so many levels.
Oh, man.
And I don't know when he caught on that was the mistake he made, but hopefully pretty quick.
Oh, my gosh.
God.
I would have just moved out of state.
And it said, let me see, he said he was...
Just move at that point, Turn the keys in.
Never mind.
It's been real.
Never mind. I don't want to work here anymore.
It was the day he got introduced as the high school pastor that day.
Hey, everyone, here's our new pastor.
Success and fail all in one moment. That's crazy.
I would never go back.
Oh my God.
No,
I'd be
move.
too
Just
scared.
move.
Yes, I would.
Just resign and move out of state.
It's not worth it at that point.
Nope, not at all.
Oh, man.
Jason wrote in and said, "Let me tell you about the time that I almost burned down the youth building.
Amen.
I had this idea for an illustration. I would pour a little bit of rubbing alcohol in a glass bowl and then set it on fire.
No.
It's a cool effect because it burns the alcohol away while leaving the water, and then the water douses out the flame. I had tried it the night before for a minute or so, and it worked great, and I thought I was all set. So the next night I start my sermon, and I keep it brief, and I said something like, our lives that are filled with the Spirit are like this bowl of alcohol, and we burn for Christ." So that was his example. I lit it on fire and went on preaching. I let it go for 5 or 6 minutes when I said this water is like sin going unchecked because how it doused the flame. So as I poured the water bottle, the flame started to die a little bit, and then I poured a little bit more. But the temperature difference between the water and the flaming alcohol caused the glass bowl, which was not Pyrex, to shatter and explode, sending glass and liquid flames all over the table, which poured onto the floor and the carpet. And they just kept burning.
Dude.
Thankfully, one of my volunteers happened to be a volunteer fireman.
No. Oh, my
so he
gosh.
ushered all the youth out while we dealt with the fire.
Oh, man.
Thankfully, no lasting damage was done except to a severe blow to my ego. And I imagine probably the carpet, too.
Yeah. Could you imagine that?
I've
Oh my
actually
gosh.
learned some things on this podcast that I didn't know. I think there was a story. This guy tried to boil water in glass, like a glass bowl,
Yeah.
and that can shatter. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think I was doing
So
that.
we're learning how not to do sermon illustrations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this
So
is
it's like,
perfect.
I'm sure
This is
that would have
perfect.
been great
Yes.
in the right, context. But
If you're a youth pastor, go ahead and listen up now.
Yeah, these will certainly help you.
Can you imagine the kids' faces? Like,
I mean, it just explodes
like-
and then flames go
Yeah.
shooting off the table.
this is what sin does. Oh my God.
great example, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked
It
out.
causes extreme chaos.
Jaden said, when my youth pastor was young and new to youth ministry, he did a sermon about how you need to bring your friends to church. He felt like this needed a demonstration, and he found the perfect one. Now, his demonstration was throwing 28 goldfish into the crowd, and the fish were supposed to represent the friends and the students, and you're supposed to pick them up and then put the fish back in the bowl of water, it represented the church. Except none of the kids cared to pick them up, and they just stared at the pastor while the fish flopped on the floor, and it resulted in the death of 28 goldfish.
I feel like Goldfish and youth group just don't mix.
Yeah.
Especially that one. That just totally backfired.
Oh man.
I know the
Probably
night
had
before.
PETA after him.
Yes, the night before he was very, very excited about this sermon illustration. He's like, man, this is gonna be powerful. The kids, I can just see them rushing around, picking them up, and then I'm gonna tell them these are
Backfired.
your friends.
The kids are gonna.
The kids just. I could just see him
They don't care. They just sit there.
just watching the fish.
Fish just flopping on the floor, just like.
Why'd you throw that fish?
I'm not touching that.
I'm not going to touch that. That's gross.
That
Typical.
is the accurate one
Typical
right there.
man. Yeah.
Davey wrote in and said, the best story from my time in youth ministry came last week. I had 2 6th graders sharing a room that was next door to mine. And after the first night, one of the kids told me he didn't sleep very well at all. When I asked him why, he said that the other kid had woken him up at 1 a.m. yelling for him to get up because he thought Mr. Davey had been shot. So I guess Mr. Davey is the youth pastor. The kid said he was yelling at him to get prepared, and then he proceeded to barricade the room, broke off a leg from a chair, and then was ready to fight. The other kid woke up and did the same thing. He broke a leg off the chair, and then they fell asleep on their beds, and when the youth pastor went in the next morning, they were both sleeping with a leg from a chair, just face up like this.
That's creepy.
Prepared for the killer, I guess.
Oh, that's creepy.
I don't know if that kid was sleepwalking or what happened, but
Guys, sleepwalking is a real thing.
It really is. It's
yes.
I'm married.
I've never heard of anything like that.
No,
but
that's crazy, but I'm married to someone who is a major sleepwalker.
gosh.
I feel like you have some crazy stories.
I do, which some of them I would never share on a public forum
no. I've heard a couple
because
of
they're
those.
wild. When I say they're wild, they are wild.
We need a podcast just called Pastor
Seriously.
Cody Sleepwalking.
No,
and that could
I'm
be a
not
podcast.
even joking. It could probably really be successful because it's crazy.
You know, I forgot to mention this, but Mindy is Pastor Cody's spouse. You're his wife, right?
Yeah,
I got that right?
his wife.
I'm-
Yeah.
Very good job.
Yes. I don't know why I almost got that
His
backwards.
partner.
But yeah, his partner.
Your
Domestic partner.
You're partnered.
If you've listened to the show, Pastor Cody has been on and been featured quite a few times.
Yeah.
He's been involved in the youth ministry here at the church for a while. Mindy has as well. Pastor Aaron is over, what is it, the children's ministry?
Children,
Little
yeah.
kids.
Yes, so they're
Listen.
pretty well versed in this stuff.
Some of the kids are as wild as these youth kids because
true.
the next year they turn into these youth kids and
They're just practicing.
we're giving them all the practice to go to youth group.
Hey, you got to do it somewhere, right? Rachel Instagram DM'd this to us. She said, we had a goldfish eating contest for a youth group event we
Another
put on.
goldfish.
Here we go with the goldfish. And each team had to nominate someone to eat a live goldfish. The usual candidates stepped up. So the gym bro, the high school kid who wanted to impress his crush, the list goes on. But our standout contestant was a girl who was a little too old to be at camp and was socially not all there. And once the activity began, each person took their turn eating the goldfish. Now, Jim Bro took it like a shot
Bro.
and was done with it. The high schooler who was trying to impress his girlfriend struggled but got it down. Now, our girl, however, had a different plan. She thought if she could stop the goldfish from moving in her mouth, she could get it down. So this girl decided to chew the live goldfish.
No! Oh, my
God,
gosh.
no.
Immediately, blood started dripping out of her mouth.
Oh my god!
The worst part is the fish didn't die. It just kept moving in her mouth, and she just kept chewing at it.
Just chomping on it.
All the while she's
What a
gagging.
snack.
Oh, nasty,
Oh my
man.
gosh, can you imagine that?
And bits of
doesn't
raw
even go
fish
here.
are coming out of her mouth.
Oh,
So she starts
man.
vomiting all over herself. And then, to make it worse, other kids and leaders, including myself, started throwing up.
Oh my
as well.
gosh.
Oh.
It was just a field of people screaming, running away, and throwing up.
Yes.
Oh.
Running away and throwing up. Can you just imagine? Bleh!
Just running through. What's happening?
No, you know all those
It's like a domino effect.
sympathy pukers,
Oh
you know,
my
they see it
gosh.
Yeah.
and they just go. Like,
They found them all in that crowd.
But
oh man.
That's
That's
just...
disgusting.
Why did you decide to chew it is what I want to
Just
know.
chomp down like
swallow
dude.
it.
I mean,
You know, goldfish I'm finding, like, just stay away from goldfish.
I have never heard a good story come out of
No.
a goldfish
No.
sermon
No.
illustration.
Our
Ever.
No.
pastor here, he swallowed a goldfish.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I think this was before I was around, but
say
for a
before my time.
sermon
Doesn't surprise me.
a sermon
No.
example, I'm pretty sure he swallowed a goldfish to prove a point. I don't know what the point was. I'm
He
pretty
probably
sure
didn't
that
have
he-
a point.
No, he probably did it just to do it.
The point
or he ate a
was
worm,
to
like he's some
swallow
crazy
goldfish.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
I don't know.
nasty.
Just drink it, chug it down. I don't know, but
Dang.
to chew it.
Note
Man.
to self: if I ever see goldfish at a youth rally, I'm
Just
leaving.
go. Just
I'm
leave.
just gonna leave.
Yeah, if you see it
So
swimming
sorry.
around
Lock it
the
up.
bowl.
I walk into a sermon at a youth conference. I'm like, I'm sorry.
No, I gotta go.
We've got to go
We're in
pray.
the wrong
We already
place.
know this is going to be bad.
Yeah.
We're gonna go get people saved at Walmart. You know.
This was another Instagram DM from Paige. She said, one summer, this little boy was at my grandparents' camp, their youth camp, and he was really homesick pretty much the entire time. Finally, they contacted his parents to pick him up, and while they were waiting on his parents to get there, they said, just go play some archery with the other kids. While he was waiting, he had an arrow shot through his hand, and they had to take him to the hospital to get it taken out.
I just,
You were this close to sending this kid home perfectly safe,
perfectly fine.
and he impaled his hand.
Out of all things to go play with. Yeah, go play with the
Yeah,
archery
go
set.
shoot bows and arrows.
Oh my
Why don't you go
gosh.
shoot these miniature weapons? It'll be fun.
Yeah, not good.
Gosh.
Morgan also, this is from Instagram. Morgan said, my youth pastor was leading the recreation games during VBS this summer. Now keep in mind, I have a kid with autism in my class named Paul. And as soon as my class got to this youth leader for the games, he told them to all sit down so they could hear the rules. The kids were all talking and he told them to be quiet, but the only one still making noise was Paul. Now, my youth pastor proceeded to raise his voice and throw a ball right next to Paul to try to get him to quiet down. And all the other kids' eyes just got huge, and their mouths dropped in shock. Because it turns out our youth pastor had no idea Paul had autism, and he thought he was just a random kid being rowdy in the crowd.
Oh my gosh.
What a jerk.
Yeah, that's funny.
I,
Not funny for the kid.
I can kind of see like tossing a ball at someone and hey, quiet down.
Yeah.
But of all kids,
No, you know,
Paul.
listen,
you never know.
Right.
my husband once again can relate to this story.
Can he?
I'm sure you can.
If he laughs at anything out in public or anything, unfortunately, it ends up being a legit, like, mentally handicapped person or something. It'll be like they'll
He's
be far
horrible.
off and they'll be doing something and he'll be like, and then they get close up and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm the
Oh,
biggest jerk
so-
ever. Like,
Yeah.
it's so bad. But it's almost every single time he laughs at anything in public, like something's wrong with the person.
And then he's like, please don't be what I thought it was. As he
Yes.
gets closer, he's like,
He's
oh,
like, I'm just
shoot.
gonna stop laughing. Someone will be like, have a limp. It's because their leg is shorter than the other. You know, just anything. It's crazy. He can relate to this story. He would be the one to throw the ball.
He probably wrote in that story, just changed the
Right,
name.
It was him.
You've been found out.
Sammy said, our youth group room used to be called the basement. And one time, my youth pastor and I were out inviting students in the neighborhood to come hang out at, quote, the basement. Now, after the service had already started, a dad comes in asking for our youth pastor and tells him, I came here to ask why you were inviting my daughter to the basement, but now I understand.
Terrible name.
Whose idea was that?
Don't name
who does
anything
that?
involved with children.
You guys want to come hang out at the basement with me?
There's going to be a bunch of other kids there.
It's going to be so much fun.
Free food.
I'll pick you up in the van before.
Yeah, we have a special van.
There'll be candy and popsicles.
Yes. That was just Sammy, whoever came up with that.
There's always snacks.
Yes.
In the basement.
Just a terrible idea. Don't name your youth group
Yeah,
the
don't do
basement.
that. The basement.
The youth group watching this is probably like, oh my God.
Hopefully they changed the name by now.
Yeah.
Steve said, my biggest youth ministry fail happened when we were driving back from an activity and I was driving the small bus. I had announced several times that everyone should be in their seat as I was going to go around some curves. The second time I announced it, I was getting off the main highway and was turning around. One particular student was standing in the back of the bus and heard me, but as you know, they just didn't sit down or hold on to anything. When I went around the corner, he bumped the lever on the side door in the back of the bus and flew out onto the road.
Oh my gosh.
Thankfully, I was only going 10 to 15 miles an hour, but he still rolled out of the bus and had like minor road rash and ripped his shorts. Can you imagine flying out of the church bus? Kind of serves him right, to be honest.
No, like that's but the car behind or like someone close by. You can imagine just like kid flying out of the back.
So they did actually say it was his wife was driving another van behind.
Oh my
so
gosh.
Thank God she was able to pull over. But yeah, could you imagine driving behind your husband to a youth group event and see a kid get tossed out a door?
Kid gets chucked out the back door. Oh my gosh.
Honestly, I'm surprised that hasn't happened on our church buses.
It's actually true.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
Thankfully,
Thank God.
that has not happened.
Nor
Hopefully
will
it never happens.
Ever happen.
Yeah.
Shin, Shin, I believe that's the name, wrote in, what seemed like a normal Friday night at our youth group didn't end up being that normal at all. We sang a couple songs and we dug into the word like we always do. And after youth group, my students and I usually hang out in the rec room trying to brainstorm where to go eat some late night grub. But this particular night, I had some extra work to do in my office for an upcoming retreat. So I decided to step in my office for 5 to 10 minutes to finish up some work before hanging out with my students. Now, during this short 5 to 10 minutes, it was unusually quiet, which that's bad news always.
Always.
No laughing or loud noises coming from the rec room.
Uh-oh.
With an uneasy feeling, I walked into the rec room and I only saw a couple of students sitting there, so I asked them where everyone was. They had no idea, so I started searching inside the church in a hurry to make sure no one was hurt. And after checking all the rooms inside for the next 10 to 15 minutes, I finally walk outside to check on, see if they're outside. As soon as I walked outside, all I see are police lights flashing, and immediately my heart drops. By now I'm thinking the worst case scenario is possible. As I turn the corner, I see an officer talking and yelling at my missing students. So I walk up to the officer and I introduce myself, explain my role at the church, etc. The officer proceeded to tell me that our students had been making homemade bombs and setting them off outside the church. And the neighbors called them in.
Oh my God.
Oh
Hey guys,
man.
after youth group, you want to get together and make some bombs?
Let's make some bombs.
I
real
have
quick.
a lot of questions.
Where was
How did he not hear the bombs?
Right.
Yeah, like listen, my guy. What do you mean?
The
Bombs?
neighbors heard them.
The neighbors heard them.
Also by
And
bombs, is it a firecracker? Is it actually,
Enough
able
to get the cops called and pissed off. So I don't know.
Tin foil and some Drano action in a plastic bottle.
I wouldn't put it past them.
Where do they get material to make little bombs?
I don't-
That's there's so many questions here. We need answers.
Yes, there's not enough context to that one.
Gosh.
Well, awesome, guys. This was a lot of fun.
This was.
We'll wrap it up here. But if you guys are listening to this and you have some stories that you want to send in and have featured on the show, we would love to hear them. Maybe this sparks some memories for you where you're like, you know what? I didn't think I had any crazy stories or epic fails until listening to this show, but this reminds me. You can email them to us at ygchronicles@gmail.com. Definitely check us out on TikTok. Pretty much the highlights of this show. We're dropping videos before the podcast is even out. So lot better to go there. A lot of fun.
Do it.
Instagram, YG Chronicles. So definitely check out all those and see you all next week. Thanks a bunch.